Hey everybody! In today's video, I'm going to show you one of my favorite simple, grungy coloring methods that I use in my classes quite a bit, and it's coloring with an acrylic block. And I'm going to show you 3 different ways to do this. I'm starting with the newest release of the watercolor brush markers from Altenew, and I also have an Altenew stamp. And I'm using some Fabriano hot press watercolor paper. I'm using hot press so that I can get a good image when I stamp with an acrylic block, which I'm not used to doing. So part of the purpose of this video is to keep you from throwing away all your acrylic blocks that you wanted to throw away when you got your MISTI. So I always wonder what I can do with mine, but I have a fun trick for you today. So after you stamp your image, put another block down on top of the stamp with the stamped inked surface side up. And the reason you want to do this is when you're coloring and then you turn around and apply the color, it's going to be reversed. So you need the stamp block to be reversed. This is one of those things where you sort of have to hold your mouth just right to understand it. But you'll see what I mean. Now with the block on top of the block that's holding the stamped image inked side up, you will just apply ink from the watercolor markers. And you'll see me removing a little bit of ink from the brush. I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do this. But in this first method, you just want a small amount of the ink from the watercolor markers going on to the block. You don't want it too wet. This is what will give you this sort of grunge look. And these colors are beautiful together. In this new set, there is an absolutely perfect cyan, which is the one that I'm using, that beautiful turquoise color. I'm always looking for that for my holy trinity of mixing. And you'll see it looks like I'm coloring a little bit away from the image. That's just the distortion from one acrylic block on top of the other. I'm not crazy, I promise. Now you'll want to give this a very light mist with your spritzer bottle. You can do this very, very wet or a little drier like I'm doing here, and you'll get 2 different looks. So in this first one, I kept it very, very light, and you'll see it just spot colors my image, and it's so much fun. So now I have another piece of watercolor paper, and I'm going to show you a totally different look. Well, not totally different, a little bit different look with another technique. So I'll do the same thing, ink up the stamp on one block, and stamp it down on the watercolor paper. Now, please note that you don't have to have 2 blocks of the exact same size. That doesn't matter at all. You can do this in stages. I just happen to because I teach a lot of classes, but it is not necessary at all. Now I'm going to apply VersaMark all over the coloring block, as I'll call it. And you'll notice that when I start applying the color from the watercolor marker, that it stays in place better. It doesn't bead up as much because it's sticking to that sort of sticky VersaMark, and it's staying in place better. So you get a little bit different look. And again, it looks like my image is shifted from the actual image. That's just the distortion. It's amazing the optical illusions that you can get with clear acrylic. So I'm adding this beautiful fuchsia color. You can actually see it up on my mat. It's the perfect color to go with this cyan. It makes a beautiful violet. And I'm applying that around the flower as well. I'm keeping the color scheme exactly the same as the first one, just because I want to show you 3 different ways that this works. The green marker that I'm using is actually from the first release of the Altenew watercolor brush markers. It's a beautiful lime green, and I love it since I'm doing sort of bright colors. Look, it's pretty even just on the block. And then again, lightly mist very lightly. You don't want big water droplets when you're doing this method. You're just sort of activating the ink. So now when I press this down, and I'm going to show you these side by side, you get like a softer, subtler look with the VersaMark. Look how intense it is on the left, a little paler on the right. This time we're going to go for super bold color, but I wanted to show you how these markers work in case you're not familiar. You want to remove the green ring on each marker, and then you'll need to squeeze this flexible barrel in the middle. You'll see the ink running into that little chamber before the brush, and then you can just keep trying it, keep squeezing until you see ink come out the brush. And you can get as much or as little ink as you want. I'm going to mop this up just a little bit so that you can see the true fuchsia color of this, and so that I don't make a big mess with my blocks, which I tend to do. So I'm using the same colors again. Same technique. I had already cleaned my stamp, so I will ink it up again and stamp it. And I'll speed this up because you've already seen this process and you know what I'm doing. Put the other block on top, and this time I'm going to actively squeeze ink into the barrel of the watercolor marker so that I have big, puddly, bold areas of color on this flower for a completely different look. This is more kind of a street art look almost. I sprayed it with a little bit of water, so it's really kind of juicy and inky. And now I'm going to press this down and just coat that whole image with really, really bright, intense color. Here's what that one looks like. I deliberately put it on a muted background. You can see a video for the backgrounds here. This is the first one that I did. And you can see that it has a totally different look. So head over to my blog today for a giveaway and more information on these projects. And thanks so much for watching.